My name is Anna, and when I was 25, I still remembered one strange experience from my childhood that I could never completely explain. It happened when I was around 10 years old. Every winter, my family would visit a small village located a little outside the city. The village was surrounded by fields, tall trees, and a large forest. During the day, the forest looked beautiful and peaceful. But after sunset, it felt completely different. My friends and I loved spending our holidays there. We would play outside for hours, build little snow forts, throw snowballs at each other, and sometimes walk along the frozen pond near the forest. Our favorite game was hide and seek. One evening, just before sunset, we decided to play another round. There were several of us, so we divided ourselves into two groups. One group would stay behind and count, while the others would hide. The rule was simple. The counting team had to count all the way to 300 before searching for us. I was on the hiding team. As soon as the counting began, I ran toward the forest. I knew a place where I thought nobody would ever find me. It was underneath a huge pine tree with branches hanging almost all the way to the ground. The branches were covered with fresh snow, making the tree look like a giant white tent. I crawled underneath it and pressed myself against the cold ground. "This is perfect," I whispered to myself. I pulled some pine branches over my body and stayed completely still. At first, I could hear my friends laughing somewhere in the distance. Then their voices slowly disappeared. The snow continued falling. Minutes passed. The sky became darker, and the forest became strangely quiet. I expected to hear someone shouting my name or running through the snow, but there was nothing. I started wondering if everyone had already left the forest. Then, suddenly, I noticed a light between the trees. A small beam moved slowly from one side to another. Someone was holding a flashlight. My first thought was that one of my friends had finally found me. I remained hidden. But then I saw the person's shadow. I stopped breathing for a moment. The person was an adult man. He was walking slowly through the trees, shining his flashlight at the ground. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't wearing anything that looked familiar, and I couldn't see his face clearly because of the darkness. My heart started pounding. I remember thinking, who is that?" The man continued walking toward my tree. I wanted to run, but I was terrified that he would hear me. I tried to stay perfectly still. Then my elbow moved slightly. A dry pine branch underneath me snapped. Crack! The sound seemed incredibly loud in the silent forest. The man immediately stopped. His flashlight moved toward my hiding place. I froze. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then he started walking toward the tree. I knew I couldn't stay there. My eyes searched the ground and found a small stick beside me. I picked it up and threw it as far away as I could. The stick landed somewhere behind another group of trees. The man quickly turned his flashlight toward the noise. That was my chance. I jumped up and ran. I didn't look back. I raced through the snow as fast as my legs could carry me. Branches hit my face, snow went inside my shoes, and my heart felt like it was going to explode. I wasn't thinking about the game anymore. I only wanted to get back to the village. After what felt like forever, I finally reached the frozen pond. My friends were still there. When they saw me running toward them, they started laughing. "Anna, where were you? Did you lose the game?" But when they saw my face, they stopped laughing. I told them about the stranger in the forest. Everyone became quiet. Then my best friend Sarah looked at me and said something that made me even more frightened. I heard there was a dangerous man who escaped from a hospital nearby. None of us knew if the story was true. But we didn't take any chances. We called the other children and told everyone to leave the forest immediately. That night, we stayed together in the village. We kept discussing the mysterious man. Who was he? Why was he walking through the forest after dark? And why had he come so close to my hiding place? A few days later, our curiosity became stronger than our fear. We decided to investigate. We packed some food, flashlights, and warm clothes and went back toward the forest during the daytime. For several days, we watched the area. We searched around the trees. We looked for footprints. We even checked the places near the pond. But we found absolutely nothing. Eventually, some of my friends started joking that maybe I had imagined the whole thing. But I knew what I had seen. Then, one morning in early spring, something unexpected happened. We met a man from the village. He was wearing an old hunting coat and carrying several tools. While talking to us, he mentioned that he had lost some of his equipment in the forest during winter. Then he casually added something that made all of us look at each other. He said he believed he had lost the equipment around the same night we had been playing hide and seek. I immediately recognized him. He was the man from the forest. The mysterious stranger who had scared me so badly that night. But there was something surprising. He wasn't dangerous. He was simply a local hunter who had gone into the forest looking for his missing equipment. When I told my friends, they laughed. "Anna, you were terrified of a hunter." I laughed with them. But inside, I still remembered that night. Because even though I now knew who the man was, I couldn't forget the feeling I had experienced underneath that pine tree. After that, we stopped playing hide and seek in the forest. We stayed closer to the village, played in the open fields, and spent time near the pond. For a while, everything seemed normal again. But I still loved the forest. During the daytime, it was beautiful. The tall trees, the soft snow, the sound of wind moving through the branches, It all felt peaceful. One sunny afternoon, Sarah came to me with an idea. "Anna, let's go into the forest and collect pine cones." I hesitated. That old memory immediately came back. But I didn't want her to think I was still afraid. So I agreed. "Fine," I said. "But let's stay close to the path." We walked into the forest carrying a small basket. The snow was beginning to melt, and tiny drops of water were falling from the branches. The sunlight passed through the trees, making the forest look completely harmless. Sarah suddenly pointed toward the ground. "Look! Rabbit tracks." We crouched down and examined the footprints. We laughed and continued walking. Everything felt peaceful. Until I noticed something unusual. There were footprints in the snow. But these weren't small animal tracks. They belonged to a person. And they were much larger than ours. Sarah looked at them. Maybe another hunter. But something about the footprints bothered me. They didn't follow a normal path. They moved around in strange circles. It looked almost as if someone had been walking around without knowing where to go. I felt nervous. "Sarah, let's go back." She smiled. "Come on, Anna. You're still scared of the forest?" I didn't want to admit that I was. So I followed her. The footprints eventually led us to a small clearing. And that's when we saw something even stranger. In the middle of the clearing was a small pile of branches and several old, dirty blankets. It looked like someone had been staying there. Sarah whispered, "And maybe somebody is living here." I didn't answer. My hands were shaking. There was something about that place that made me uncomfortable. The forest was completely silent. No birds. No animals. Not even the sound of the wind. Then we heard something. At first, it sounded like a small movement behind the trees. Then came another sound. Crunch. 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 Someone was walking through the snow. And whoever it was seemed to be getting closer. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Run." We dropped the basket and sprinted toward the path. I could hear footsteps behind us. Heavy footsteps. For a moment, I was back underneath that pine tree again. The same fear returned. I didn't turn around. I just kept running. When we finally reached the edge of the forest, we saw an elderly man standing near the road. He was holding a walking stick and looked completely calm. He noticed that we were frightened. "What happened, girls?" he asked. We told him everything. The footprints. The blankets. The strange noise. The footsteps following us. His expression became serious. Then he said something I'll never forget. You shouldn't wander through the forest alone. People sometimes stay out there, and you don't always know who they are. His words made me even more nervous. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that clearing. Who had left those blankets there? Why were the footprints moving in circles? And who had been walking behind us? Maybe there was a simple explanation. Maybe it was another hunter. Maybe it was a traveler who had nowhere else to stay. Maybe the footprints belonged to someone who had simply gotten lost. But there was one question I could never answer. Who was actually following us that day? After that experience, I never entered the forest alone again. Years passed, and the memories slowly became a story I told my family. One day, I told it to my younger brother. He laughed and said, "Anna, you always think the worst." Maybe he was right. Maybe every strange thing that happened had a normal explanation. Maybe the first man really was nothing more than a hunter. Maybe the second mystery was also completely harmless. But sometimes, when I remember that winter night, I can still picture the flashlight moving between the trees. I can still hear that branch breaking underneath me. And I can still remember the footsteps behind Sarah and me. A forest that looks beautiful during the day can feel like an entirely different world after dark. It taught me something I have never forgotten. You can feel completely safe in a familiar place and still not know what is hiding just beyond your view. Some mysteries are solved. Others stay with you forever. And perhaps that's what makes certain childhood memories so powerful. You grow older. You learn the truth about some things. But a small part of you still wonders. What if there was something else out there? Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this mysterious childhood experience, make sure to like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel for more mysterious stories, unforgettable experiences, and exciting English storytelling. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next story. I'll see you in the next one.